Hello everyone. So let's just get right into it. We're going to look at a video on the YouTube channel Social Experimentalist. It's a channel created by Danny Shine, who is a very inspiring, entertaining guy, and you should definitely check out his channel. So we'll start with this quote here at the bottom of the description. The essence of the liberal outlook lies not in what opinions are held, but in how they are held. Instead of being held dogmatically, they are held tentatively, and with the consciousness that new evidence may at any moment lead to their abandonment. Bertrand Russell. So the essence of the liberal outlook. It doesn't really matter the term, it's a concept of something that is felt inherently. So we map it out, define it. But the essence of it, of the outlook, lies not in what opinions are held, but in how they're held. Instead of being held dogmatically, fear, control, they are held tentatively, and with the consciousness that new evidence may at any moment lead to their abandonment. So this is just like being able to entertain an idea without defensively dismiss it, to not say that that cannot be and therefore to not look, but to see if it connects and flow with it, leaving our ego belief system out of it. Allow it to flow. Condemnation without investigation is at the height of ignorance. So with that being said, let's watch the video. School or prison.
Good afternoon, young people. I don't know if any of you were here last time I came. Ladies and gentlemen, good people, I'm here to unteach you all the stuff you've learnt in school. I'm an unteacher, and I believe in unschooling, because what you may not realise is they're not teaching you much useful things in
Another word for unschooling is deprogramming.
School. They don't teach you things that are useful. They teach you things, in fact, that you don't even know they're teaching you, because they're teaching you in the background. It's sort of running in the background. Now,
the background obviously is the subconscious, the hidden intentions of what the system that we go through is, that is known as the education system. It's an indoctrination system. They're conditioning us to not critically analyze information, to acquiesce to authority, to be afraid to speak our minds, and all of the negativity that comes along with that, suppressing ourselves.
First thing you need to know about schools.
It's important to know, and we'll see, that the teachers do not know the agenda of the system. We just are born in it, and so we've adapted a false perception of what we're really doing and find ways to justify it and defend it, and of course, you know, just working for a paycheck. Just give me my money, it's the way it is, I don't want to be bothered.
Is that they are controlled by a small group of people who are called the government. They control the information that you get to find out about. They try and get you all to think the same way. Now, do you know what a group of fish is called? Do you know what they call a group of fish? A school of fish. Now, why do they call it a school of fish? Because they're all swimming in the same direction.
Uniform,
yeah?
one form.
Now, that's what they're trying to do to you here in these schools, all
Kill
over
the
this
individuality.
country. They're getting you to think in the same way. That's what they're trying to do.
Follow the
now,
leader.
What they don't tell you, what they don't teach you, is the things that you need to know about. For example, how many of you learn about the law in school? You don't learn anything about the law? What?
Well, why don't you know anything? Yeah, of course they don't teach the law, because the more ignorance about the lies, the better we are controlled by it. But I wanted to say, first of all, here, Let's go back just a second.
What they don't teach you is the things that you need to know about. For example, how many of you learn about the law? That's what they're trying to do. Now, what they don't tell you,
the thought that I lost and came back was we're conditioned to externalize our attention, feeling insignificant or not worthy or insecure. We look to follow what's cool and externally try, that's external, instead of just knowing within ourselves and being comfortable with that, and then follow that, seeking to fill a void that cannot be filled by investing in something else than ourselves.
Don't teach you is the things that you need to know about. For example,
so we'll keep rolling.
How many of you learn about the law in school? You don't learn anything about the law? Why? Why don't they teach you anything about the law? Because they don't have money. They've got money to teach you about other things, haven't they? Yeah?
They'll take our money to pay for it.
Teach you about politics
even if we don't agree.
Nothing. What is politics? What is politics? Anybody? What is politics?
Mechanism for control.
What is it?
Hegelian dialectic.
The government and that. Politics, my friends, is about how you are being controlled. You are being controlled by a small group of people who are basically connected to all the large companies like Tesco and the banks. They're together with the government. They control the information that you get. What do I suggest? Okay, what I suggest is
that's fundamental to control the information that we get, to erase the ancient knowledge, disconnect us from our roots of knowing ourselves and observing nature and knowing how to map it out, and replacing it with a bunch of bullshit propaganda. Instead of teaching us about propaganda, we're being taught propaganda.
Firstly, to do away with the myth.
And being tested and formed to just believe it because it was written down and we had to take a test on it, we had to remember it, and therefore that's just the way it is.
That some group of corrupt people who run...
See, it's just a big trick, because it's not the exploration of knowledge and information. It's rather learn this, don't look any further, and stay in line. Now, the teachers within the system who make up the system, of course, always can have influence, and some are compassionate, pass that along, but still, they're working within a certain kind of system that has a certain goal. Of course we power the whole thing. That's what's going on here.
The country, but don't really. They're kind of shadow, they're puppets who run the country, decide what all the schools should be learning,
consent to something
and
better.
Go around testing it. That's the first thing. Get the government completely out of the education of our children.
It's planting seeds, but they don't really understand the depth of it.
Are not telling them the truth that the whole idea of authoritarianism is certainly a very problematic idea, which is what they're learning in school. What they learn in school is to do as they're told. They learn to be obedient to the teacher that said, why don't I go and speak to people who can vote? No, I need to speak to you guys before you've been too brainwashed by the school system.
That's true. They're targeting the children.
It's too late.
They are targeting the children. So it is up to us to go to that source too, because, I mean, it's just very obvious, of course.
We need the young people. If we're going to start a revolution, we need the young people. Watch Russell Brand. Watch Russell Brand on YouTube. It's for your age group as well.
Alright, now for people who have heard Freeman's stuff about the Mark of the Beast and the in-depth discussions about that, and seeing Russell Brand and having the X in the circle, and even maybe possibly being a handler for Katy Perry and all that, you know, he still does open up exploration to certain things. So that's the whole thing here, is it's not to get in duality of condemning someone and making it look like they're the enemy, they're bad, they're this. It's just take the information, leave kind of the person aside in a way, and just take that, because, you know, for the children, or for these younger people, Russell Brand, you know, is in some Hollywood movies and stuff, might be an excellent bridge into expanded thinking. So Alex Jones, another character that people think is questionable, and even people discrediting David Icke, thinking he's a reptilian shapeshifter. Let's set it aside, look at what they're saying, and take the information and see where they're coming from. Obviously, Alex Jones is more about a fearful agenda, you know, but that type of thing can shake somebody awake to get into the compassion, not be all up in the doom and gloom. And David Icke, man, he looks funny, okay? He does look funny. But what's coming through him and the connections there, you know, it's legitimate. It's just also, it is personal. It's somewhat subjective to how we see things and what we choose to talk about. So let's look at the information, not the person.
One of the teachers asked me a question about what's my suggestion as an alternative. Well, firstly, we need to start questioning the whole authoritarian nature of schools, whereby a group of people basically put you in detention if you don't do what you're told. Who has a right to put anybody else in detention just because
detention,
you're being forced
prison bars,
to study things that you may not be interested in? Okay? We need to get education clubs where children are taught to think for themselves. That's the point. How many lessons have you had on thinking for yourself? How much are you encouraged to think for yourself? You're not. And when you go out of the school, unfortunately, you then subject yourself to more conditioning, like the television. If you've got a television,
classic
these are very dangerous machines,
domestic terrorist.
They mess with your mind.
Produces a hypnotic state.
I'm just trying to start off get people to think about everything.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, I'll speak.
It's not. It does.
So you have the teacher who is just clearly uncomfortable, and to him doesn't make any sense because it's a reflection of his own box of perception and his inability to cope with it. So he's saying, because I don't get it, it's too much for me to think about. You don't make any sense. Why are you doing this?
You don't have to make.
I mean, what's your goal? What's your aim?
It's to get people to question and to question their reality, question themselves. Yeah. So, what's subliminal messaging? I want to share it with the
So
people.
you're believing that people are controlling us through TVs, through hidden messages?
Yeah.
So let me explain to you what subliminal messages are.
And, you know, that was pretty funny. But, you know, unfortunately, true.
Subliminal messages are messages that are not necessarily
teachers can get some knowledge.
That sometimes they're right in front of you, but they're hidden. Okay, and there are subliminal messages all over
we already
the
know.
place.
It's just hard to
And
look
one
at
of the
for some.
subliminal messages in schooling is that it's good to keep the law, even if the law is immoral. Now those guys there have been trained, the lovely uniforms, they've been trained that it's good to keep the law, even though the law may be completely immoral. Now I want you to question yourself. I want you to ask that question. That has been subliminally implanted in your mind through television and through schooling. I want you to ask yourself the question.
And of course they wouldn't believe themselves to be evil people. They would think they're following the orders.
The law is immoral.
But that in itself,
Nazi Germany, everything that happened was within the law. It was legal.
Is a lie if they believe they don't
That's a good question.
ultimately answer to themselves, are not responsible for their actions.
Talking about this, can't people decide what they take in? They're watching TV. Well, you see, you can't decide if you don't know you're being subliminally messaged, can you? Right? All the large corporations use.
That is one of the main goals of mind control, affecting the subconscious mind that, you know, affects so much of behavior without us being aware of it.
Subliminal messages against us. They're using it against us, right? All the political parties are using subliminal messages against the people that they're trying to get to vote because they're manipulating them, right? And I think it's important for young people to understand what's really going on and to question what they're being told both in school and at home and on the TV and in the media. Okay? And at the moment, the government have got full control over all the information we get, because every time they go to these institutions, they are being funded by the government, right? So the government keep on drip feeding them that the government is a legitimate organisation, when actually the government is the most dangerous, massive initiator of violence. Every government initiates violence wholesale all over the world, yeah? But they control the information that you get.
It's not in place to create violence or to control people. It's originally created to guide and create things like schools and the NHS. However, certain individuals have used that and used that power for corruption, and
yes, thank you. Because it's individuals who make up the government.
See, so he's saying the teacher that's about to speak up, you know, intelligent kid, trying to form a concept of how this could happen, rather than seeing that these institutions are no doubt a reflection of nefarious intentions, and it's much deeper because it's the nature of reality and forces working behind that. But no fear on that, because it's just another aspect of our own consciousness out of check, and we are more powerful than anything. Maybe not in the physical, but within ourselves we are. So the teacher saying thank you, because thinking that it's the individuals within the system. Well, if this system is based in an immoral structure to support that, then it doesn't matter about the people within that system, even though it does obviously completely matter. It's still built in a certain way for a certain function. So until it's made cognizant of this, and the mass collective rejecting legitimacy of the type of structure, then we can have some real organized structures, and then it will really be about the people. So that's the cognitive dissonance that's at work here, of not being able to see the whole thing. And Danny makes it sound so simple, because it is, but it can be hard to even articulate some of these things. But when you hear that kind of logic, it just penetrates through, because it makes so much sense. So we just have to learn to really to be aware and to know it well enough to tell others.
Defending government, well, your opinion is definitely opinionated.
It's oversimplistic, and so you're conflating a whole load of issues.
Go on.
So I completely agree with you that
it's definitely opinionistic. That's funny, but he's saying it's oversimplistic. You're looking over too much. That's the obfuscation. It is that simplistic. The obfuscation is the mind control. It's the confusion. It's making it not clear.
all of these kids that I teach, I want them to question. I don't want them to blindly
What do you
accept
teach?
what I teach English.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want them to blindly accept anything that I tell them.
Great.
But equally, you say that we're brainwashing them, but you coming out here romanticising it and shouting on a microphone, and you know how they're going to respond. They come out and treat you as your hero. That's a very similar thing to what you're saying with doing.
See, I think, that, again, he just can't understand the compassion, why someone would be out there speaking about these real issues. So instead, maybe he's projecting his own ego thing on him, saying that you just want to come out here to look cool, rather than, because he's trying to understand why someone would do it. So he's thinking in terms of, himself perhaps. But obviously, he's not there to look like a hero. He's there out of his frustrations and cognitive dissonance to just say some truth on a megaphone and watch people kind of go nuts about it in some cases.
It's okay.
But my main issue is just that I agree with you in terms of, governments, well, all that kind of stuff, but you don't know you haven't been to view any of the lessons in there. So what you're taking as is a whole of what you interpret as education. And so it's kind of dangerous to just be saying, oh, completely disregard anything being taught, because you don't know if there is something being of value.
I didn't say disregard everything being taught, I said question everything.
But you were saying you shouldn't be going to detention, you shouldn't be listening, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think the whole idea of detention is just totally unethical. It's completely unethical and it doesn't work, right? But
See, he said that the teacher said that you didn't come in here and review everything that's being taught, so it's dismissive to say there's nothing that could be learned. But I think that what he doesn't even see in that is it's not the school material that may be as applicable as just how we treat each other and set the example, because that is what we're missing here, the sacred feminine aspect of compassion and imagination. So, yeah.
The fact that it doesn't work, the fact that it doesn't work comes even, in my opinion, after the fact that it's completely unethical, right? Just like torture is unethical and doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah, so you're liking it to like imprisonment or something.
Yes, it is.
So I would hope that any of you guys, if you do get a chance with your teachers, if you want to discuss this kind of stuff, it is important.
Okay, so I've got questions here. What am I suggesting? Firstly, I want to suggest something really important to you.
So here's the compassion coming through.
In my opinion, and it's just my opinion, the most important thing you can do during your school is to be decent and loving and compassionate and caring to the other students and the teachers, because the teachers have got an impossible job on their hands. They have to take care of 30 of you, half of which don't want to be there. The most important thing you could possibly do in school is to be nice to people, look out for people, take care of people, because they're other human beings and they're just like you. And if you do that throughout your school, in my opinion, you'll have had an amazing... Here's some things they're not teaching you about.
See, so that understanding of not just focusing too much on the negativity of how we're being manipulated, but also having the understanding of and compassion for the people within that, and looking at things realistically, if you will, in that situation, because he knows that the teacher doesn't want to be asleep, but is still contributing through that, not contributing to something greater. But so there's both. That's the full scope of things. But even if someone wants to just only express a negative, then it's our ability to just take that from them and then take our own positivity or go to this other person. So whoever is saying whatever about truth is good. But if we want to tangibly apply, a productive way of thinking into our lives, then we have to look at the solutions to the problems always.
They're not teaching you about your feelings, what your feelings really are and how to deal with your feelings. They're not teaching you about the law. They're not teaching you philosophy. They're not encouraging you to think for yourselves. And you can study this on your own now on YouTube. YouTube is so amazing. You can learn absolutely anything on YouTube. You can learn how to think properly. You can learn how to think logically. You can learn how to meditate. You can learn how to deal with your feelings.
Meditation is key
if you just
to observing and connecting with yourself.
For things that aren't, What's that? Okay, I've just had a couple of very good questions, excellent questions. I was early on before I was saying you need to be careful about the television. The difference between YouTube and
there's the duality in the student's mind, because he was looking for something that contradicted what he had said earlier instead of following it, which is fine, but that's just an example of that argumentative thing. But it's not like he really cares, because obviously he's more about the attention of the students, because that's the paradigm, which is what it is.
Is that you can choose what you watch on YouTube, and you can watch absolutely anything, So that's a big difference, whereas the television is designed specifically to make you think a certain way. Like the news is not really news. It's an entertainment program designed to make you think a certain way. Okay? Whereas YouTube, if you know where to look, you can find anything. Okay? So you can find stuff that you want to watch. But I agree with you. Your point is a good question. Your question is, then aren't you going to end up thinking like YouTube? Well, there's no such thing as thinking like YouTube, but you don't have to spend all your time watching YouTube. You can spend some of it just out in the field thinking for yourself.
YouTube's great, but also nature.
Do you get money from that? What's the point of doing this?
Thank you.
Because I like doing it. I really like it. Yeah.
That's where you get money from. You like getting harassed by the police?
That's a great question.
See, so you know, there's that whole thing of if you're not getting money, then why are you doing it as well? You know, that we grow up.
That's a good question. Do I like
It's
getting
easy to
harassed by the
adapt.
police?
You must enjoy the attention, just like how I enjoy the attention of being.
Yeah. Well, you do
And
like
of course,
getting
there's
attention in your
nothing
class.
wrong with that.
Attention.
Yeah. Do you like it?
I like people.
Yeah.
It's
all right. There's nothing wrong.
I'm the one that cracks jokes.
Oh, you-
I'm the one that provides entertainment.
Oh, great.
What are you providing
Good for you.
right now? Except disturbing.
Well, no, I do like the attention. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to like attention. Attention is okay, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with liking attention.
How many views do you get each video?
I don't know.
Anyways, subscribe to me, the Lonely Creeper. It's a picture of a Minecraft creeper with Steve next to him.
Okay.
This is Cena Camper, your boy Cena on Instagram, logging out. I'm gonna pass it back to, what's your name?
Danny.
Danny Boy here.
Alright, so he's doing a lot of great work out there, so it's important to support the people, and there's a lot to learn from watching him do what he does. I'm going to review more videos of his and the short documentary, Everything is Okay, as long as you do what you're told. So I hope you liked the narration a bit, and that it might have made this a little more informative. So with that, I'll see you next time.